Welcome back to Hardware Unboxed. It's time for our almost middle of the year monitor buying guide. Last time we provided an update on the best gaming monitors was back in the holiday period of 2022, and since then, well, we've gotten many more displays, including brand new OLED monitors that are well worth including in this video. As with our previous best of videos, we tend to talk about and recommend monitors we've personally tested and know to be good, or monitors that are very similar to products we have tested. It's always worth going back and checking out the dedicated monitor reviews we produce for more in-depth thoughts on each product, but just so you know, these recommendations are not sponsored in any way by any company, they're based on our testing and reviews. Most of our reviews these days are sitting over on our dedicated Monitors Unboxed channel, so be sure to head over there and subscribe so you don't miss the full suite of our monitor coverage. Also, the goal of this video is to go through 5 different monitor categories covering 1080p, 1440p, 4K, ultrawide and HDR gaming monitors, with several recommendations in each category. But if you're interested in a specific category of display, I'd highly recommend checking out the dedicated best of video we've produced for that category, which tends to go into a bit more detail than we do in these videos with more options. Finally, a note on pricing. While pricing was accurate when we made this video, prices do change pretty often, so it's always worth checking out the links in the description, which will provide up-to-date pricing information. The 1440p monitor market continues to evolve at a fast pace, and I think it's currently the hardest it has ever been to recommend products in this category. But what's making it harder than ever right now is simply the amount of 1440p monitors that are available, as well as some supply issues for some of my favorite choices from prior buying guides. Let's start with the budget 1440p category, which these days consists of medium refresh rate monitors in that 144 to 180 Hz range. Right now, there's about 1,000 of these to choose from. Every company seems to have one, and that makes choosing a specific product difficult, but I have a few pointers to get you started, as well as some great choices right now. At the moment, I think it's difficult to recommend spending more than $350 US on a 1440p 165Hz-ish gaming monitor. Above that price, you start entering the territory of other products with better specifications. And to be honest, most 1440p bang for buck monitors are priced below $350, so I'd just immediately remove any priced above that threshold from your thinking. From there, it's a bit of a split between the $250 to $300 range and the $300 to $350 range as to whether you go for a super budget option or an upgrade pick within these specs. In the budget class, I usually recommend 27-inch 1440p IPS monitors, as I believe they deliver the best performance. Which specific model can be a bit of a muchness, as they are lots of great options that deliver value for money, of course with differing performance in various categories. Right now, I'd be looking at the LG 27GL850, the LG 27GL83A, and the Gigabyte M27Q, which are all priced around $270 to $300 US, the best value of which is the 27GL850. Fast response times, great resolution, decent color performance, not amazing contrast ratio, and it's priced at just $270 US. The 27GL83A is also similar from a hardware standpoint. Right now it's $300 US, but I've seen it as low as $260, another great buy. The Gigabyte M27Q isn't quite as good in my opinion, but I still think it's a decent buy, so it depends on exact pricing and the features you want. For an upgrade pick, there are lots of products to be considering. Mostly when grabbing something above $300, I'd be wanting upgraded colors or upgraded motion performance, so that's where my recommendations lie. The MSI G274 QPF-QD is a reasonable choice here. At $330, it offers similar performance to the 27GL850, but a better contrast ratio and much wider color gamut thanks to the use of quantum dots. The MSI MAG274 QRF-QD takes it to the next level again at $350 with upgraded response times and also quantum dot tech, so that is very tempting and would be my first choice. Occasionally I've seen the Gigabyte M27QP in here too, though it seems hard to come by these days. If you're after a faster 1440p 240Hz monitor, in the past I've recommended products like the Gigabyte M27QX at $400 US, which has been an epic value purchase. Unfortunately, the M27QX has been out of stock for several months now, which might mean a sneaky discontinuation, and that would suck as it was a great product. Given what the M27QX was offering, I find it very difficult to recommend people just spend $200 more on similar hardware. Right now, I'd either wait for new 1440p high refresh rate options, wait for the M27QX to reappear, or at a pinch grab the Samsung Odyssey G7, which admittedly is still a great buy for $500 US. A fast 27-inch 1440p 240Hz VA monitor, great contrast ratio, curved display if you're into that, excellent motion performance. I still like this display, and it's come down in price quite a bit since launch, which always seems to put it into that tempting price category. Beyond that, in the 1440p category, we get into the ultimate overall best monitors you can buy, and there's quite a large gulf here in price between the best of the best and the best value products. Most of the time, I wouldn't recommend spending much over $500 on 1440p these days, but if you want the absolute best, including true HDR capabilities, those sorts of products are priced around $1,000 US, which is a significant step up. But boy, is it also a step up in visuals and performance. My recommendation for high-end buyers right now is the Asus ROG Swift PG27 AQDM, which is a 27-inch 1440p 240Hz OLED display. This is a truly excellent product in a lot of ways, delivering motion clarity that destroys most LCD monitors and gets very close to 360Hz offerings. Even if you weren't that interested in HDR gaming, the PG27 AQDM is a great product for competitive multiplayer gamers due to its speed and high refresh rate. And it gets even better if you play a variety of games that include both multiplayer and single player. That's down to the excellent HDR capabilities of this OLED. Deep zero-level blacks, per pixel local dimming, and good levels of brightness lead to a stunning HDR experience while gaming. There are a few downsides here, such as the weak text clarity and risk of permanent burn-in, so it's not a great display for productivity, but for 1440p gaming, there are few products as good as this one. Also worth considering for the ultimate motion clarity at 1440p is the Asus ROG Swift PG27 AQN, which provides a 1440p 360Hz IPS LCD panel. This display slightly edges out the OLED in motion, while also delivering better input latency due to its higher refresh rate. It's a well-calibrated, great-looking display too, though its high $1,050 price tag makes it hard to recommend for everyone. Definitely worth considering, though for most people I'd go with the PG27 AQDM instead. Now that it's 2023, I think it might be time to start more seriously considering a 4K monitor for gaming, especially as prices continue to be quite decent for suitable high refresh rate options. With the abundance of scaling options in modern games, plus the desktop and productivity advantages of a 4K resolution, there's no better time to jump into the ecosystem than now. When researching for this video, there were a few clear standouts for me in this category, the first of which is the LG 27GN950, which is available these days for just $550 US. This is the older version of the 27GP950 we've been recommending at times, and it lacks some more modern features like HDMI 2.1. But for PC-specific gamers that don't need that feature, the 27GN950 is a great buy at this price. It has decent response times, it's got good levels of brightness, and great DCI-P3 color space coverage, plus thanks to a firmware update it can now hit 160Hz, which is well suited to modern gaming. In previous months, we had been recommending the 27GP950 at more like $750 as an upgrade pick over some of the more budget choices, but with the Prime model now being available for below $600, it becomes the go-to choice given it performs very similarly to the GP950. It also makes it harder to justify any non-HDR 4K monitors above $700, as the main differentiating factor previously was the use of this LG Nano IPS panel versus the Innolux panel on cheaper alternatives. Speaking of cheaper alternatives, there are a few other options still worth considering, though these days they aren't necessarily cheaper. The Gigabyte M28U at around $550 is still a great buy, and it does offer HDMI 2.1 functionality, which the LG monitor does not, as well as similar response time performance. It isn't as strong in terms of color gamut coverage, but as a 28-inch 4K 144Hz IPS, it should definitely still be on the radar of shoppers. There are several monitors that are very similar to this Gigabyte as well, though they tend to be more expensive. Products like the Asus TUF Gaming VG28UQL1A, MSI Optics MAG281URF, and Samsung Odyssey G7 S28 are all great buys too, if you can find them for $600 US or less. Anything more than that, you may as well buy the Gigabyte option or whatever is cheaper. The Gigabyte M27U has also caught my eye lately as a product that's selling for just $530 while offering a 27-inch 4K 160Hz IPS panel. I'm yet to test this monitor, but I'm hoping to do so early next month, so if it holds up in our review, it could be a good recommendation. Also important to think about when going 4K is whether you'd like a larger screen size, as 4K still looks excellent at 32 inches. Generally, you'll be needing to spend at least $100 to $200 more to upgrade in size, which is something to factor into your buying decision. In this sort of category, I'd recommend the Gigabyte M32U, which offers excellent value at $680 US. It's well balanced between color performance and motion performance without excelling in either area, although I think you'll be satisfied with what it brings. More expensive monitors like the MSI Optics MPG321UR-QD do offer a wider color gamut at a higher price tag, more around $900, but for the majority of gamers, I think the M32U is a great choice for $680. As for the ultimate 4K monitor, the best of the best, for this I think we need to start looking at HDR options where several choices are available. Adding HDR into the mix, real HDR that is, typically comes at a several $100 premium, but in some cases that is definitely worth it for the visual upgrade it brings, especially if you're after the best. While I will elaborate more on this shortly, I think the two best options right now for 4K buyers looking for a premium monitor are the Samsung Odyssey Neo G7 and the LG C2 42-inch OLED. These are very different products of course, but both offer true HDR hardware and are great buys depending on what you're after. The Odyssey Neo G7 is the more straightforward choice. It's a 32-inch 4K 165Hz VA LCD priced at $1,000 US these days. The killer feature here is the 1196 zone full array local dimming backlight, which helps deliver fantastic HDR visuals, including deep blacks, great shadow detail, and bright highlights all at the same time. On top of this, you're getting the Elite VA LCD speed with Samsung's excellent tuning, and while the panel is annoyingly curved and isn't the best for productivity work, the HDR gaming experience it offers is next level. The LG C2 OLED is also a good choice, these days being offered for $900 in its 42-inch size, which is much cheaper than some alternatives that use the same panel, like the Asus PG42UQ. As it's an OLED, it has per pixel local dimming, delivering an unbeatable HDR experience with excellent deep blacks and still solid levels of brightness. It's also extremely fast in terms of response times, although limited due to its 120Hz refresh rate. The C2 is a large display as well, so it's not always going to fit into a standard gaming setup, and it has some OLED related limitations like the risk of burn-in and so on. But if you're after a great 4K gaming display with proper HDR capabilities, the C2 is one to look out for, especially now that it's priced below $1,000. When buying an HDR monitor in 2023, the usual caveats apply when researching the range of HDR options out there. Be very careful about products that advertise HDR without actually offering any real HDR capabilities. These monitors, often advertised as Display HDR 400, simply aren't worth buying or considering in any way. But if you do want a true HDR product, luckily these days there are some great products on the market, and yes, while they are quite expensive, the experience on offer is excellent. To determine which HDR monitor is best for you, I'd recommend first deciding between a regular 16:9 format or an ultrawide, and then considering screen resolution and display technology. If you're after a normal 16:9 monitor, the choice is between three options in my opinion: the Asus ROG Swift PG27 AQDM, the Samsung Odyssey Neo G7, and the LG C2 OLED TV in a 42-inch size. All offer something a bit different, and what is right for you may come down to the size, resolution, and format. The best of these in my opinion is the Asus ROG Swift PG27 AQDM. As I talked about earlier, this is a 27-inch 1440p 240Hz OLED with excellent motion clarity and elite HDR performance. It's a highly versatile product that's well suited to both competitive multiplayer gaming and visually stunning single-player experiences thanks to its strong combination of features and performance. It's bright, especially for a WOLED panel, it's vibrant, fast and responsive. Really hard to go wrong here, although the drawbacks for OLED like burn-in and sub-pixel layout hurt this monitor's usability for desktop work. If you want something larger or higher resolution, the next step up is the Samsung Odyssey Neo G7, which offers a 32-inch 4K 165Hz fair LCD experience with 1196 full array local dimming zones. This is a great monitor, and it doesn't have some of the drawbacks of the Asus OLED like burn-in or sub-pixel layout, which makes it more suited to desktop apps and productivity work. This is limited somewhat by the curved nature of this monitor, but it's also a bigger screen with a 4K resolution, and there are some benefits there for gaming as well. The mini LED backlight delivers great HDR performance, not quite as good as the OLED, but certainly very impressive, and Samsung have well tuned this VA panel for motion performance. I'd get this over the 240Hz version, the Neo G8, as that monitor has a few deal-breaker flaws, and all up the Neo G7 is a great option if you want a larger LCD. If neither of these two sound like the best choice, you can go even larger with the LG C2 OLED in a 42-inch size, which is available for a low price of just $900 these days. I think this is a great screen, but with its lower 120Hz refresh rate and weaker brightness than the PG27 AQDM, ultimately it's not as good for gaming. It is, however, much larger and packs a higher 4K resolution, along with full smart TV functionality, as this is, well, it's a TV. So this could also be a great choice depending on your needs. If you want to go down the ultra-wide path and feel that format is right for you, you've certainly made a great call, as in my opinion the QD OLED ultra-wides are some of the best HDR gaming screens available today. I also personally like the 21:9 format and its better immersion than standard 16:9 monitors, but it's not for everyone. If it does sound like something you're after, well, let's get talking about the best ultrawide monitors, because the top choices there are also what I'd pick for ultrawide HDR, so let's get into it. The best ultrawide category is another that features quite a stark split between the top and bottom ends of the market. In my opinion, if you're after an ultrawide, you should either spend big and grab a QD OLED for over $1,000 US, or go something budget and spend more like $400 US. Anything between these prices typically isn't worth buying, as it either offers only a minor upgrade on our value picks or a significant downgrade on the top picks. For high-end shoppers, it's quite clear that the ultrawide market is now dominated by QD OLED monitors, and there are many to choose from, all offering a 34-inch 3440x1440 QD OLED panel at up to 175Hz. We have a great breakdown available on Monitors Unboxed that compares the four main choices in detail: the two Alienware options, the MSI 342C, and the Samsung OLED G8. Right now, I think of these options, there are two standout choices, and it'll ultimately come down to your budget as to which of these makes sense. For around $1,000, you can grab the Alienware AW3423DWF, which is a $100 discount on its launch price, while for $1,300, you can grab the Samsung Odyssey OLED G8, which is $200 less than it launched, and in my opinion is the better monitor. On the spec sheet, the OLED G8 is superior with a 175Hz refresh rate instead of 165Hz that you get with the AW3423DWF, though this is a minor difference that isn't worth considering really. Both also feature the same panel, so the fundamental aspects to performance, such as the excellent HDR capabilities, zero level blacks, per pixel local dimming, and high 1000 nits of peak brightness, remain the same whether you go Dell or Samsung. What separates the two is Samsung's superior HDR tuning and better ability to hit 1000 nits without an image quality reduction, as well as a greater range of color calibration options thanks to the OLED G8's use of a smart TV processor. It's also a better looking monitor with no active cooling and therefore silent operation. If you want the best of the best and have an Nvidia GPU which works best with this display, the OLED G8 is what I'd buy. But if you want to save $300, which is a reasonable saving and are comfortable with reduced HDR performance and fewer features, the AW3423DWF is also a great choice. You're still getting a decent HDR experience here for gaming, it just isn't as good as the G8 and isn't as well calibrated in its 1000 nit mode. If you haven't experienced HDR gaming before, I'm sure the AW3423DWF will impress you greatly, especially if you apply some of the tweaks I mentioned in my firmware update video. Like many OLED monitors though, I wouldn't recommend these for productivity work, mostly due to the risk of permanent burn-in, as well as some minor concerns around text quality. These QD OLED monitors also have poor screen coatings that require optimal placement of lights in your room to reduce reflections, just something to keep in mind. Not everyone has $1,000 to spend though, so if HDR isn't what you're after and you just want a regular ultrawide that's affordable, I'd recommend the Gigabyte M34WQ. It's a bit unusual being a flat 34-inch 3440 by 1440 144Hz IPS display, but what it offers at just $400 US is an excellent balance of performance across the various areas we test and look for. Response times are good, color performance is good, and there are no huge negatives such as dark level smearing that you do get with most budget VA ultrawides at a similar price. Seriously, VA isn't that much cheaper these days, and therefore I can't recommend a VA ultrawide right now. That's not to say there are no cons here. The contrast ratio is very weak in comparison to its VA competitors, and response times aren't as fast as premium IPS gaming ultrawides. But the versatility of its IPS panel and general balance of performance is what swings me towards this product compared to others on the market. In the 1080p product class, I think it's actually quite a simple story these days. Either you're after an entry-level monitor to get started with PC gaming, and I think 1080p is still a suitable choice if you have less than $200 to spend, or you're more interested in a super high refresh rate option for competitive gaming with features like backlight strobing and fast response times a priority. There's only been one small update to my recommendations in the 1080p space, and that's replacing the older AOC 24G2 with its new version, the 24G2SP, so the same as the previous update to this video. This display offers excellent bang for buck at just $160 US, and it's just as good as the 24G2, but with a slightly higher 165Hz refresh rate instead of 144Hz. It retains the 24-inch 1080p IPS panel and other aspects to performance. It can sometimes be priced too high at more like $200 though, so I'd be on the lookout for sales that bring that back down to a more realistic $160 price point. The 22G2SP is a solid choice, offering great response time performance in its class, solid color quality, and handy features like a height adjustable stand, which you still don't always get at this price point. The overall package AOC offering is nicely balanced between gaming performance and image quality, so I'm comfortable continuing to recommend it. The main negatives are simply that it doesn't have class-leading performance in any area. It's not the highest resolution or the highest refresh rate or the best performing display, but it's so well balanced that it doesn't really matter, especially for just $160. I'd also be looking at products like the Gigabyte G24F and MSI G274 around this price, but we haven't tested them, so it's harder to recommend. Some people may question why you'd buy a 1080p monitor in 2022, but the simple answer here is that 1440p monitors aren't that cheap yet. For most gamers, I would recommend getting one of our 1440p choices instead, but if you simply don't have $250 to spend, then going 1080p is your option, and the 24G2SP offers something great here. If you're after a premium monitor for esports gaming, the best choice is the BenQ XL2566K, which I recently tested and strongly recommend for hardcore or professional competitive multiplayer gamers. It's a 24.5-inch 1080p 360Hz TN panel with elite backlight strobing thanks to BenQ's Diac Plus technology. Seriously, this is the clearest monitor in motion I've ever used. It beats 240Hz OLEDs and the PG27AQN quite comfortably when the backlight strobing mode is enabled, giving that competitive edge to serious gamers. This is a pretty niche product though, as BenQ have priced it at a whopping $600, which is very expensive for a 1080p monitor and something that only serious competitive gamers should buy. For everyday, more casual gamers, there's a lot more value to be had buying a, say, a $600 4K monitor or an elite 1440p display, especially as the TN panel used here doesn't deliver very good color performance or viewing angles. But the XL2566K is there if motion clarity is the number one thing that you are interested in. It really executes very well in that one area, and for some people, it will be worth buying. And that does it for today's monitor recommendation video. Lots and lots of options to choose from, covering most of the categories I hope you are considering at the moment. If you do want to learn more about the monitors we've talked about today, we do have dedicated reviews for most of them that will go into the specifics around performance and features, which are well worth watching. I also have longer breakdowns available for the best, say, 1440p, 4K and HDR monitors, though just be aware that some of these recommendations may be less relevant in today's market depending on pricing and other options since we made those videos. And don't forget about Monitors Unboxed, our new channel, which is the best source of monitor content around, at least we think so, and I hope you do too. So yeah, check out Monitors Unboxed. Anyway, that's it for this video. If you do appreciate all the mountain of testing that goes into making these sorts of recommendation videos, then please do consider supporting the channel via our Patreon or Float Plan accounts. Links to those are in the description below. If you do support the channel, you will be helping us to buy monitors that we test for our reviews in these recommendation videos, and you'll get a few cool bonuses as well, such as our Discord community, our monthly live streams, BTS videos, all sorts of great things over there. So thanks for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one.